Yes, it was kind of short notice for me. The people who came to the half-day retreat know that I was advertising that Bhante Chunda will be coming, but he went back earlier now because the ride was available and it didn't quite work out. So we had a topic to cover, but I want to cover it thoroughly, so I am not ready for that. But I'm happy to just have a session together with you, and to maybe also, because we're getting towards the end of the year, see if some of you have come, a couple of times. If there is anything you would like to reflect upon, or any questions that might have arisen during that time, or just, how it is for you to know that in 21 days, as it says over there, Christmas is coming. You were already mentioning, that it is this kind of time where we come together with family, and that can also create a bit of friction. Can create a lot of happy feelings as well, but also when we've lost people, then the loss usually comes up at those important times during the year, when someone has a birthday, or when we were on holiday with the person the last time, or when we came together as a family, and then there's suddenly this kind of like hole that we might feel much stronger at that moment than we would otherwise. Anyway, is there anything from your side? Is there any questions? Or any reflections on the Christmas period or December? Not really. Okay, well that's fine. It's no problem. I just thought if there is something there, then I'd try to kind of respond to that. And I also don't want to repeat too much what we had during our half-day retreat, even though it's something which I feel is relevant for this time now. But another thing that was going through my mind, where I also came to another session without being too prepared, is that sometimes when we are too prepared, it can actually be a hindrance. It can be problematic. It's nice to have a little bit of an idea. It's nice to, feel that you are coming from knowing your stuff, basically. But on the other hand, it can block out this ability to listen, and this ability to be in the moment. So if we have too much of an idea what we want to do, it kind of puts up these blinders, and we are not open to adapt. We're not open to be flexible enough. And sometimes we also just feel, I'm not qualified, or some of these things might kind of arise, and we want to try to make sure that that doesn't arise by preparing, but then it just doesn't quite gel. And I mean, for me as a primary school teacher in the past, that's kind of like my conditioning, which is still there even though it's been 20 years. Of course you have an idea what the kids should be learning and where you should be at some stage, so you have a little bit of a bigger kind of container where all these things are happening. But you also want to make sure that you are there for the children, and that when something arises, that there isn't this kind of rigidity of, we have to now do this and and get things covered, and then we end up kind of getting ourselves in a situation where we bog ourselves down. And it's so much more important that the environment is actually looked at and cared for. So that was one of the concerns that I realized was important for the children, so that there is a understanding, that there is a feeling of safety, that there is a feeling of ease in the room where we all are together. And then, of course, you will need those tools and things where the learning can happen, but you can't force a person to learn. You can just create the environment. And another thing that I was also sharing at that group that I was recently at is one of the other monastics was getting ready and kind of thinking about, what shall I do? I'm going to be giving one of those talks, a Friday night talk in town. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Ajahn Brahm and the other monastics and what is happening usually on Friday nights at our city center in Dhammaloka. You probably get, 300, 400 people turning up. And you sit in front of them, they're all looking, and there's like a live stream camera in the background there, and you kind of feel, the stakes are really high, and, how is this all going to go? And the monastic in question, who was up for the talk, had an opportunity to speak to Ajahn Brahm and was asking, what is the best way to prepare for this talk? And that's when Ajahn Brahm said, well, the best way to prepare is to be in the right mind state. And that probably kind of ties back into what we were talking about last time I was here. Just make sure that you are coming from the right place, that you have kind of prepared the ground in that sense. And as I was reflecting on that, I kind of knew that this might happen, but that it might not happen. So I wasn't as diligent as usually with, taking a bit more time for myself to quieten it down and to be ready. But then also I was thinking, you need this kind of flexibility as well in situations where you really, really don't expect, and where there might be a little bit of kind of, I didn't prepare for this, and why is it me, and why do I... And then when those kind of mind states arise, then I kind of block myself out again to have this ability to be present and to just share in the moment. One of the other things we discussed as well is that in our tradition, what is very beautiful is that Ajahn Chah, even if there would be quite junior monastics that he would sometimes ask to give a talk, he would say, look, as long as you are teaching from the heart, as long as you are not, kind of pretending or trying to create something which is just wowable, and you are honestly sharing and teaching from the heart, then that is your truth. And even though other people might not, have that same truth at that moment, fine. But what else can you do? And if you manage that, then it might go well, it might go medium, it might go not so well, but you've done your best, isn't it? And that's really the only thing that we can do. The other thing that I was also reflecting upon was that kind of friction that I was describing that arises when we don't want certain things, or we had an idea of how it should be. And that's what happened for me when I was working with disabled people in the past, also as a layperson. And it was a kind of a new environment. That's not something I was trained in, but I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing to do. My sister actually did a bit of that work. And then also because I didn't want to do military training in Switzerland, which at that time was compulsory, I was still able to kind of talk to a committee and explain why I don't want to do this, and there was an alternative. And there were many, many different things that you could do, and one of the things that was on offer that I actually tried out and also worked at, like a carer in that sense, for 6 months, was quite interesting, because the people I worked with, they had a bit of, physical handicaps, but mainly mental handicaps. And some of them didn't have language whatsoever. And when you are coming from this kind of intellectual idea and from, planning things and communicating things with language, you suddenly come to this kind of crossroad where you bang your head against the wall because you want to communicate, but you just can't do it in the same way that you usually would do it. And I have this kind of one occasion in mind where we would go with our clients to a holiday for 2 weeks, and for some reason, don't know, maybe it was my karma or something, or it just happened, I was sharing one client with 3 people because he was quite challenging. So he was a 18-year-old male, and he was strong, and he was, he didn't have a lot of kind of frustration tolerance when something went in a way that he didn't want it to go, and then you had to kind of handle that situation in some sort of way, and you do learn by kind of what is it called, error and what's the other one? Trial and error. There we go. Thank you. And you get it wrong a couple of times, but when you are willing to learn, and when you are understanding that what you are putting in, even though it might not be, the communication that we do otherwise, there's so many things that actually communicate. And when you're a little bit aware of what's happening within your own heart and how that affects other people, then some people I have experienced, and especially people who have some, handicaps, they are actually very, very good mirrors for what is happening within ourselves. They are so tuned in, and they listen, and they understand, not by what you are saying, but the way you behave, the way you speak, or even the kind of vibes that you are giving off. And by having that reflected, it was very helpful for me to kind of see, okay, if I behave in this way, if I handle a situation in this way, then it has these kind of consequences. And one of the things that happened, as I was describing, he was a very strong 18-year-old male, and we knew that he had injured people in the past. Sometimes you would have to hold the person, because there is certain things and certain situation where you have to kind of contain it in some way. And he's broken people's nose bones with his head, and he's broken glass and all sorts of things. So I had to learn to hold him, but to hold him in a way without creating anger, without creating resistance, without basically going to war, because I realized that I didn't really have a chance. He was really strong, and even if there were 3 of us, and it just wouldn't feel right, kind of 3 of you, but I was still holding him. And when I was holding him with kindness, with understanding, with giving him a container, but still, not being irritated, not having kind of hateful thoughts. Hate is a big word, but just hate or irritation or frustration, then he would allow me to hold him, to restrain him in that sense. And then, the whole situation would be able to calm down and to balance itself out. So that was one thing I learned with those people when I worked with them, and that was wonderful. And the other thing is also that kind of wanting to understand, wanting to communicate, and putting so much energy into that process that I would actually tire myself out, and that I wouldn't be available, that I wouldn't be able to work to the best of my ability. So it took me, I think probably the first time, about 3 days. But after 3 days, you kind of get in tune with that one person you're looking after, and with the whole group, and with what is happening there. And I often describe it as you kind of put out your antennae to communicate in a different way, to receive, and also to transmit some of those things that we usually do with language. And then you are kind of in that world. But because the friction lessens, it can actually be quite energizing, and you are in the flow, so to speak. I'm sure you had probably experiences in other areas, but for me that was one area where I kind of learned that. And then you're in that kind of state for the 2 weeks that you spend together, and then you have to make your way out of that state again into the normal kind of world, because you have your antennae all out and you're coming into a world where they bombard you with communication, where they bombard you with expectation, where you have to function in a completely different way. So I had this kind of transition of not wanting to eat for a little while, or eating really little and just being quiet and grounded, and slowly kind of making your way out. And that is probably something for the people who have experience with coming to a retreat or coming to a longer period of silence, that something similar is happening. You come into a quiet environment, you come into a meditative environment, and then initially there is this kind of friction, and you're trying to fit in, or you are not so happy and you don't want to fit in, and it creates all this kind of energy and you tire yourself out. But then at some stage you just kind of give in and go with the flow. And you don't really realize when you're in the flow so much that is happening. So there were some of those kind of funny situations. If you look at it from the outside, it was funny. If you're in it, you don't really. So we would also sometimes help each other because, you wouldn't be working every day. You would also sometimes get half a day off, or we would have someone look after another person every now and then. And so in Switzerland, it wasn't summer, because that's when the vacations were on, and we would go to a lake to, do a bit of bathing and stuff like that. So I was looking after 2 other people, adults. But because they needed a different type of care than you would otherwise expect from an adult. But people from the outside, they don't really see that, isn't it? So I had one on one hand and the other one on the other hand, and we're in a public space together. And you get this kind of look from the people around you, and you reflect, oh yeah, that's right. This must actually look quite weird to the people who don't know what's going on here. And it kind of snaps you out of that kind of mind state that you're in for a little moment. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's all right. That's the kind of outside perspective. And then you go back in and it's like, okay, this is my job. But one of the things that I also reflected upon back then that came back to mind, and I don't know if that's very unique, but that's something that happened for me. I understood that it is quite a challenging job, and that I actually have quite a bit of responsibility for those people as well. So, of course, most of them would be okay to put to bed, or yeah, you say that, isn't it? I don't want to use the wrong term, or just, at night time it was time to go to sleep, and you knew, okay, you don't have to worry about them. But then I realized, well, it's probably a good idea to worry in a good sense, or to take care of myself, because I want to be present again for these people the next day. And other people in that group, they're like, oh, now is the time for a bit of whatever, chill time. And I can't even remember what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. Probably we weren't allowed to have drugs, but maybe a little bit of alcohol, I don't know really. But even just the idea of, watching TV, and some of them had horror movies that they were interested in, or whatever it was, and, quite late into the night. And for me, it was just kind of a no-brainer in terms of, first of all, do I want to expose myself to these kind of things? Is it something wholesome and beneficial for me? But for me, there was also the other aspect of, I have a job, I have a responsibility here. I want to be present, I want to be ready, and I don't want to, clog up my system and clog up this beautiful energy that happens when you're listening, when you're receptive. And the other thing you also have to understand, once you are more receptive, once you are more aware, once you are more present, all these things, have a bit of a kind of like stronger influence on you. They go in and they don't just get buried, they actually get processed, or they move things within you. And I think I actually expressed it to the people, not in a way, trying to tell them off or whatever, but I was just saying this is what is true for me. And I'd rather, go to bed early, or go for a walk, or meditate, or whatever it was, to just kind of like balance myself out. All right. Well, that's a few things that come to mind from, you also triggering me a little bit with being a carer at the moment and reminding me of that time. So maybe I can relate.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But it's not just our work. I mean, that's maybe another aspect that I found so beautiful. I finished my work as a teacher, and I was happy to do that work instead of doing military training, and I actually enjoyed what I was doing. So this idea of, you have to work to earn money, and it's your kind of duty, and all these kind of concepts didn't really arise for me. And it's interesting. I was doing exactly the same work like everyone else. Or also when I changed from being a teacher to caring for those people, I had like a roster, a work roster, and it was different than at school. At school it's always the same. Okay, you get your holidays, and people would tell us, "Oh, you get a lot of holidays." That's true, yes. But if it would be, say, like a Tuesday morning, or like a Thursday afternoon, when I would always be with the kids, I would be out there, I don't know, going for a walk or doing something or doing my shopping, and I just kind of felt so special. I was like, wow, I'm free. I don't have to, be in the classroom, and I don't have this kind of structure that I always had before. And I really felt that even if I weren't paid, I would have been happy to do the job. And that's, I think, something really, really beautiful. I did actually try to extend, but, you get military training is roughly a year. And if you choose not to do military training, that's what was happening back then, you had to do 1.5 years. And once I ran out of the 1.5 years, I was like, can I get more? I really enjoy, being able to do all these different jobs. One of them I had to do for half a year, but then afterwards I could just choose. And there was this huge catalogue of stuff you could do. You could go overseas, you could try do something that you've never tried before. You didn't actually need proper training for it. They would give you some, basic training, and they would make sure that, you don't some of the jobs. But I mean, some of my friends, they worked in hospital, and they didn't have any training for that. So they would just get the basic training and then just, do whatever they were able to do and to contribute. And you would always, have another responsible person there for the things that were, But even, I remember one of the things that wasn't on my kind of to-do list was to stay overnight. Because I wouldn't be able to do that by myself. I didn't have any training or whatever. But I said I would like to. So I actually stayed a couple of times as well, and just was an additional person. And I used to do massage therapy at that time. And I really, really also wanted to offer that to the people that were living on in that group, or whatever you want to call it. It was like 2 flats that they put together in one, and there were 8 people of different ages. And that was really nice to experience, those people in a different kind of setting as well, where I could basically give them something that, just whoever wanted to come, and they could choose whatever massage they were interested in. Because I trained to massage, many different parts of the body. Anyway, okay. Does that trigger anything, or is there any follow-up questions, or does that make sense?
A lot of that makes sense. I have dementia clients, and a lot of ways of your communicating spot on. and you can be present, and you'll get to know someone. And the communication can be through touch, or pauses, gentleness. And, people genuinely feel, if you respect them, they feel that.
Yes.
Even if there's all sorts of other things going on, they feel that. And then there's a trust.
Yes.
There's something there that trusts. And, a lot of those techniques totally relate to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's even a technique, it just kind of arose from the moment, and respect is one of those really important words, yes.
I mean, even Ajahn Brahm, when he says the 3 questions, that's the most important time, most important thing, what you're doing.
No, most important person.
The person you're with.
Yes, and then the most important thing to do is to care.
Is to care,
Yes.
And I'm not great at what I do, but I'm really appreciated for what I do, just because I'm there. I turn up, I'm present.
But I mean, don't say I'm not great, because the other thing I just wanted to mention is honesty. If we're honest, then that is an expression of respect and trust.
Just being sincere and real.
That's it. What more can you do?
And people like that.
Yeah,
they do.
And then you also learn, because if you don't have that openness, if there is this kind of like, I know what I'm doing, or I know I got my training, and now, okay, you have to follow the training I learned. Why are you not responding to the thing I learned in the classroom? That's when you have to let go of those things that you have learned and go into a relationship and connect.
Like I'll see a new client on my system, I'll go, okay, a new client, and I'll turn up, I won't be quite sure, I'll be respectful, and get to know them.
Yes. And that's the other thing with respect as well, that I try to kind of tell my kids, and through my kids also to the parents basically, that I wanted to make sure that even when they told me things about their parents that I might not agree with so much, I would respect what the parents do, and that they have the best interest in mind for their child. And hoping that when I kind of show that respect towards the way they do things, that they will also respect the way I do it in the classroom that they might not agree with. I have my kind of conditioning, how I, say this is a rule and we keep this rule, or whatever it is. And that is very, very important, that we kind of work together.
Another thing I do just quickly is whenever I meet a new client, I see a human being going through the aging process.
Yes.
People feel that. I don't see an old person.
Yes.
I see a person that's going through the process of aging.
Yes.
And and they feel that, like you said, the way you see someone.
And it's actually something beautiful as well. Even when you look at nature, that you have these rhythms, and that there is a certain kind of ripeness. And that's actually what grows in practitioners. The older people become, and if they're lucky enough to still be here and in a form that is, manageable.
Grace there,
but there is grace, and there is an acceptance. There is an understanding that this is part of the trajectory, and that we learn from this body, that we learn from sickness, that we learn from the difficulties. And I still remember this one very vivid kind of situation with one of the children that had trouble. And I automatically went into this role of like, okay, I'm the teacher and I have to fix things and I have to make sure, and try this and try that and try something else. And then at some stage, it just somehow clicked. And I just stood or sat next to the child and said, "This is difficult for you, isn't it?" And the child just lit up and said, "Yes, finally." I mean, it didn't, but just from the expression, I realized how forceful I was, even though I wanted to help. I had good intentions, but it just didn't. There was a communication breakdown. There wasn't enough listening or enough understanding. Okay, very good. Let's try and bring that into our meditation practice together. So now is a good time to wiggle a little bit and to readjust if that feels right. If you're already in a comfortable position, that's great. Well, we can basically apply what I was sharing to our bodies and to our minds right now. We can kind of imagine that our minds and our bodies are almost like another kind of entity, and we are coming into the space here together with them. And there is now some sort of communication happening. But it's actually quite a different type of communication than the one that we are usually used to. It's much more a simple presence, a receptiveness, a listening. And in order to do that, we kind of have to let go of our own stuff, our own worries and concerns for a little moment. And it's actually so beautiful if another being or something like our body and our mind can be the mirror and can be the trigger for that. Because otherwise we just out of habit hold on to so many things that are kind of pretty useless or even burdensome, heavy, tiring. But we just don't really know any better because the conditioning is so strong. And the world tells us to do things in certain ways that are often not so helpful. So if you haven't closed your eyes yet, I encourage you to do that. If it's too much, you can just do it halfway, whatever feels right. But the idea is that we open up to feeling and understanding what's going on. We try not to be distracted by the things on the outside, so that's why it helps to close the eyes. To not pay too much attention to them or to the other senses as well. Knowing that we are in a safe space here together. And then we can allow the mind to just linger on what's going on. And as it was expressed very nicely, we do that in a respectful manner. Even if we don't understand, even if we don't know why our body feels in a certain way, why our mind behaves, runs in a certain direction, does what it does. But it has its reasons. It has its causes and its conditions. We don't have any control over that. But we can listen, we can learn. And we can be honest. If we don't like it, we don't have to think, I'm a Buddhist, I have to like this. If we don't like it, we don't like it. It's okay. It might be difficult. It might be unpleasant. That's what we call being patient, having acceptance, holding space, or holding the body, holding the mind, as I was learning to relate to that client of mine back then. Didn't really understand why he was lashing out and why he was feeling agitated. But my own agitation in my own heart definitely didn't help. Didn't take me very long to figure that out. Find a different way. And then keep listening, keep feeling, keep connecting, and see how things evolve. Are they getting more agitated? Are they speeding up? Is there, kind of pressure or heat? Or is there the opposite happening? A softening, an opening, a slowing down of things, a settling. Sometimes it actually feels kind of the same, but we can kind of be in it, very close to it, and feel the heat, or we can be a bit further away. Doesn't mean that we don't care. We stay connected, we carry on caring, being respectful, but we move away from the heat, from the involvement, from the entanglement. Giving each other space to be how we are, whatever that might look like. And as you engage in this way, you do get feedback. You get feedback from your body, and you get feedback from your mind. You even get feedback from your breath if you're aware of that. Unburdening the body, allowing it to soften, allowing it to rest. And as you engage in this type of conversation without words, you get absorbed in it. You're actually enjoying it. Kind of master-slave relationship between you telling the body what to do softens into a partnership. Grows into connection and mutual respect. Feeling engaged, and at ease at the same time. See if you can bring more and more parts of your body along. Connecting to them, seeing them, respecting them. And having a relationship. I really like that the word relationship includes the word real. It's a real relationship. Without pretending, without pleasing, without manipulating. But with encouragement, with each other's kind of benefit and welfare in mind. And if we are able to get this right-ish, then that will spread into the mind as well. That will influence our attitudes, the way we perceive the world, the way we understand, the way we relate to things that are not physical. But they can still feel quite hard and solid at times. So we can soften them up too. And then as we become more confident, more trusting, more at ease, stillness can grow. Stillness is actually a natural expression of all these beautiful things. Feeling completely at ease in someone's presence, in the presence of our bodies and our minds. In the presence of this moment, however it presents itself. Not feeling compelled to have to fix, to have to do, to have to speak. This is probably a good time for me to shut up too. But if that's a bit too much, you can just gently allow your awareness to be with the simple process of breathing. If there isn't enough happiness and relaxation and ease present, then allow the breath to gently guide you towards more stillness, ease and peace. seeing if we can respect whatever arises and even welcome it. As I said, sometimes with a safe distance in between, but without denying it. It's here. Whatever sensation, whatever thought might come up, it's okay, you belong. I don't resist you. I don't resent you. I let you be. I let you do your thing. Not getting stuck in the past. Things can change, they can shift really drastically in a moment, as long as they're not fed. And not anticipating or fretting what's going to happen in the future, how it's going to evolve, how it's not going to change. Stay open, connected, and flexible. Connecting, caring, cooperating. And at this point in the meditation, it's important to understand, like I described before, that in this process where we open up and where we flow with things, where our antennae get very sensitive, and we have to walk backwards out into the world where we came from, gently and slowly as well, and allow it time so we can readjust So getting in touch with the senses, getting in touch with the body and the sensations there. Getting ready to emerge from meditation on the other end. But then making sure that we don't do this too abruptly and too quickly. If things have really cooled down, it's like when you have a glass from the fridge that you take out. So you allow it to come to room temperature slowly. You don't just take water from the kettle, which is boiling hot, and pour it straight into the glass, because that will break and shatter the glass. So we go slowly, gently, step by step. And one way to connect to the sense of hearing is through the singing bowl, when we transition out of a meditative state. So as we finish the meditation, and as we also come to the conclusion of this session together here in this space, we'll all have different spaces that we go into. So, like I was describing, coming out of the meditation slowly, it might also mean that you drive back home and that you sit in front of your house for 5 minutes before you go in, depending what kind of awaits you. So that you also have a bit of a sense of protection as well. Because once we are very open and very sensitive, sometimes we can't really distinguish so much of what is ours and what an influence might be from the outside. So we do need a certain groundedness, flexibility as well in that to, sometimes not get swept away by some of those things. Because when you are relating to situations, as I described before, that can be quite physical and can be quite, someone might be going through a difficult thing that we resonate, yes, very important, but that we also make sure that it doesn't overwhelm us, because then we can't be that kind of what I was describing before, then we can't be this refuge or this thing that holds or that gives some kind of stability to a situation or a person who is quite unstable. So we have to make sure that we are in a good space ourselves as well, because then we have the best chance to stabilize the whole situation as well. Otherwise we end up with someone suffering and us suffering along, and then we just double the suffering in this world rather than trying to understand it and to hold it and to... Sometimes we can't alleviate it really, but we can be with it. Yeah. Well, anything anyone wishes to share or ask at this point? Okay. Very good. Thank you for coming along. And have a good week.